Hey folks, it's Pastor Doug. It's good to be with you again today. It has now been 3 consecutive Sundays that you and I have not been able to gather together for worship. If you ask me, it's getting kind of old, and I wish we could get together this week in worship, but of course we know that that is not a possibility. As the coronavirus continues to do its thing, we know that the curve of infection is still shooting up at an astronomical rate, and so we need to stay at home. We need to stay hunkered down for now, and though I am thankful for the technology that we are utilizing now to try to keep us connected as a congregation, I still realize that even all the technology, as good as it is a poor substitute for actually being together face to face. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be beginning of May, end of May, who knows. We do know, however, that the building needs to remain closed to the public at least through the end of the month of April. This being apart from each other has really forced me to think about what it means to be together in the first place. And as I've been thinking about mourning the fact that you and I are not able to be together in person, I've been reflecting more and more on how God continues to make a promise to be with us always. And I'm especially mindful of that in the Gospel of Matthew. Of course, this year in the lectionary, this is the year of the Gospel of Matthew. So how appropriate it is that in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, when we are all separated out from each other for health and safety's sake, how appropriate it is that we can talk in our gospel readings about a God who is present with us, who is always present with us. And in Matthew's gospel, among all the gospels, this is the one that really emphasizes that aspect of our relationship with God. Certainly all the Gospels speak to it, but Matthew in particular offers, I think, the greatest emphasis on God's presence. And I've said this in sermons before, so if you've heard this before, just hit the mute button and give yourself maybe 20 seconds and come back and we can go on. But as I've said in sermons before, the wonderful thing about Matthew's Gospel, it is the Gospel that emphasizes God's withness, withness, God's withness for us. And I look at that and say, well, look, in the very beginning of Matthew's gospel, we're told that this baby is going to be born and his name is going to be Emmanuel, which means God with us. Well, then you hit the fast forward button, go all the way to the end of Matthew's gospel in chapter 28. And what does Jesus, the risen Jesus, tell his disciples as they're going out to do mission, to discipleize the world? He says, "And lo, I am with you to the end of the age." He doesn't say, "I am with you until next week, then you guys are on your own." He says, "I am with you always to the end of the age." I am with you in perpetuity. It is always going to be a reality. Nothing you can do is going to change that reality. In fact, even the Apostle Paul tells us in Romans chapter 8, there is nothing in all of creation that can separate us from the love of God that we have in Christ Jesus. That gets me through right now, knowing that as much as I feel isolated and so set apart from everything, not everything, but from many things that give bearing to my life, I know that God is with me in the midst of it. And I know that should I happen to find myself infected with the coronavirus, and if I would have to be in total isolation, as hard as that would be, I know that God certainly is with me, that not even a virus can keep God from being with me and from with us. And that is indeed good news. And so even though you and I are not going to be able to be together for Palm Sunday or for Holy Week or for Easter Sunday, I hope that you will still feel the connectedness that we have, not only with each other, but with God as well. And maybe the technology that we have here will enable you to feel a bit of that connectedness, just to be reminded that yes, there are dark days in front of us, but but God will come through, that God is with us in those dark times. And I hope that you can cling to that as I'm trying to cling to this. I ran across an interesting article today from a Lutheran pastor. Her name is Elizabeth Palmer, and she's talking about God's presence with us and the power of that presence with us. And there's this wonderful phrase that she uses that I'm going to find it here right now. I just want to share this with you. She talks about a God who jumps all barriers to be with us, that doesn't allow there to be a divide with us. And so she mentions it. She says this. She says, we remember that we serve a God who has jumped across the divine human barrier in order to be able to bleed and sweat and catch viruses and weep and ache and die. We serve a God who has jumped across the divine human barrier in order to be able to bleed and sweat and catch viruses and weep and ache and die. A God who is with us in all aspects of our life. That is the God that we worship. That's the God who has promised to be with us in these trying times. I know we're not gathered together on a Sunday morning, and if people drive by the church building, it looks like there's nothing happening there. But here's the thing, and I sort of alluded to this in my pastor's pondering from this past week. On the surface, it may very well appear like the church is closed because the lights are turned off and you don't see people around there. But you know what? The church is not closed. The church is never closed. You and I are the church. It is not a building. And we know that in our head, but do we know that in our heart? And so I hope that in the coming days, as difficult as these days are going to be, I hope that you will take that God reality into your heart, that God reality that says, I am with you always to the end of the age. And as you take that God reality into your heart, that withness of God into your heart, I pray that you will see yourself as being the church. You, your life, how you share the love of Christ with your neighbor, whatever that might be, however grand or as minor as you think that is, however you share the love of Christ, you are the church of Jesus Christ. As you share the love of Christ, you are the hymns we sing. You are the prayers we offer. You are the sermons that get preached. You are the church of Christ. So, in this time, this very dark, uncertain time that we're living in right now, stay at home, stay safe, but be the church. Be the church as you share the love of Christ. Maybe it's just calling somebody you know, a friend. Maybe it's calling somebody in the congregation, one of our homebound members, finding out how folks are, checking in with them. Be the church as you act with kindness and compassion for those around you. I am reminded, one of my favorite hymns is the hymn Abide With Me by Henry Light. It is a chestnut hymn that we have, and in this particular email that I'm sending out, you'll find another button to push that will link you to a video that was shot a number of years ago, actually at St. Olaf. There was a worship service, and you have the St. Olaf choir and the congregation gathered, and it's just a video of the hymn Abide With Me. I've included that video in this particular email communication because it speaks, the text of that hymn speaks so powerfully to the withness of God. And on a personal note, I have to share why this particular video I share with you is so powerful to me. Frequently, I will take my smartphone with me on a visit with one of our homebound members, and this particular video of this hymn I have played for a number of our homebound members. It's just wonderful for folks to be able to hear music who are homebound, and so I've used this particular video a number of times. Well, one time in particular, a few years ago, I was privileged to play this video as I sat at the bedside of Bob Wennerstrom. And these were in the last moments, actually, of his life. And I remember putting my phone up on the pillow up near his ear, and I played this hymn for him. As we got to the final stanza of the hymn, these were the words that Bob heard as he drew his final breath. He heard these words: "Hold thou thy cross before my closing eyes. Shine through the gloom and point me toward the skies. Heaven's morning breaks and earth's vain shadows flee. In life, in death, O Lord, abide with me." I hope that this hymn that you click onto will bring you comfort and will bring you peace. I hope that this hymn that you click onto will be a reminder to you of God's withness, that God is with you in all times and in all places. And I am so looking forward to the day when you and I can be with each other in person. But until that time comes, be well, be safe. God bless you.